Lesson 1. Hello, my name is Götz. In a series of 90 short tutorials, each between 30 and 90 seconds long, I will guide you to the basic elements of EEP. You may, if you wish, repeat all steps after each lesson. To do so, please press Escape now if you're currently running a layout in full screen mode. Find the X in the top right corner and click on it to close your layout. This will bring up the opening screen. Choose New Layout. Keep the width, length and node density at their default settings. Select the Autumn Meadow number 1 as your surface texture. Leave the amount of mountains at 0 and click OK. This will take you to the Plan window. The green field represents your construction area and is of course empty at this stage. The bright green lines represent your camera setting for the 3D image. The camera sits at the tip of the triangle, and the dotted lines represent your field of view. The strong line points from your camera position to the target of your view, which is currently at the center of your layout at the coordinates 0, 0. On the left you find a toolbar. This is where you find all your models sorted into categories. You can minimize it by right-clicking the toolbar's border. Lesson 2. I would suggest that you begin with a tree. Trees can be found in the Landscape Elements section, and a left-click on this icon will automatically expand the toolbar if it is currently minimized. Double-click the Landscape Elements folder to open it. Double-click the subfolder Flora and activate the deciduous category. This will open a list of models in the window below. A right-click in the top half of the toolbar will give you the option to search a model by name. Type the letters BIR to find the paper birch, along with some other trees containing the same letters in their name. Activate the paper birch in the model list. Move your mouse pointer to the layout area and left-click the spot where you want the tree to be. Note that the mouse pointer is still accompanied by a small black frame. This tells you that your selected model is still active, and you can add additional copies to your layout. Right-click in an empty space to free your mouse pointer. Lesson 3. To see your work in 3D, you may either open the View menu and select 3D Window, or click on the colored cube in the bottom left corner. To return to the Plan window, you may click on the icon depicting a pencil over a drawing, or select 2D Plan window from the menus. With the mouse pointer over the map, you can also press F5 to switch to 3D. And with the pointer in the 3D window, pressing F5 takes you back to the Plan window. Lesson 4. Left-clicking a model activates it if it belongs to the current category. A white frame highlights the selected item. The pointer's appearance changes depending on its position. When the mouse pointer is inside the frame, 4 arrows indicate that you can move the model. To do so, hold down the left mouse button and drag the icon to the new location. Near the center, the mouse pointer is replaced by a ring, telling you that you are now in rotate mode. Hold the left mouse button and drag the mouse sideways a bit to form a lever. With the mouse button still held down, go around the model to spin it. A selected item can be deleted either by clicking on this button or by hitting the delete key. Please delete all trees except one at this stage. That remaining tree shall be your reference point for the following steps. Lesson 5. Some items may be difficult to find on the green background. Open the View menu and deactivate the landscape relief. Now hit C to change the background color from black to grey. This setting is suited a lot better for rearranging your models. Lesson 6. Right-clicking an icon when nothing is selected will bring up the model's name. Highlighting any item and subsequently right-clicking it will open its property menu. Enter the value 0 into the X and the Y coordinates to position the tree at the center of your layout. Accept the new values by either clicking on OK or hitting the return key. When you now change to the 3D view, you should see the tree right in front of you, with its base at the center of the 3D window. Lesson 7. Switch back to 2D. Hold down the right mouse button while you're over an empty area of your layout. The mouse pointer should change into a hand. You may have to right-click first to free the mouse of its current mode. With the right mouse button held down, you can move the layout. With the mouse wheel, you can zoom in and out. Please note that the spot under the tip of your mouse pointer stays in place when you zoom out or in. Lesson 8. With the mouse pointer near the edge of the window, you can use the mouse wheel to scroll the layout, either left and right or up and down. Lesson 9. You can also use the mouse to navigate in the 3D view. Position the mouse over the tree and roll the mouse wheel up to move towards the tree. Roll the mouse wheel down to move away from it. With the mouse pointer near the edge of the window, you can pan left and right by rolling the mouse wheel, or tilt the camera up and down. Lesson 10. You can hold down the middle button, usually the mouse wheel, to move your camera around an object. Please note that the spot under the tip of your mouse pointer stays fixed. This pivot point is always on the layout surface. If you position your mouse pointer over the tree, the actual pivot point is on the surface, behind the tree. Lesson 11. Hold down the right mouse button to travel across your layout. You'll move forward when the mouse pointer is above the center of the window, and backwards when it's below. Your speed will increase when you move the mouse pointer further away from the center. Move the mouse also to the right or left for turns. Lesson 12. In this and the next lesson, I will show you the special properties of a track element. Please select the Rail Track Editor, keep the pre-selected track style, and click on the Lay Track button. Now click on the spot where you want the track to begin. A green triangle marks the starting point, and a green dot marks the end. Hold down the left mouse button on the dot or the triangle to bend and stretch the track. In areas where the mouse pointer changes into 4 arrows, you can hold down the left mouse button to reposition the element. The mouse pointer changes into a circle when you're over the white oval in the center. In this mode you can rotate the track. To do this, hold down the left mouse button, drag the mouse to one side first to form a lever, and then with the mouse button still held down, go around the track to spin it. Lesson 13. A double click on the oval rotates the track counterclockwise by 90 degrees. The same goes for a double click on the dot or the triangle. Hold down the Shift key and double click the oval to reverse a track's direction. Naturally, you can drive your trains in either direction regardless. The orientation of tracks is significant later on, in conjunction with signals and contacts. Holding down the Shift key and double-clicking the triangle changes a right turn into an equal left turn, and vice versa. You can do the same on the dot. Hold the Shift key, double-click, and the left turn is changed into a right turn. To conclude this lesson, please delete the track by either clicking on the Delete button here or hitting the Delete key. Lesson 14. From this lesson onwards, I will guide you through laying an oval with a small station, setting up trains, setting up the required signals, and establishing logical connections for automatic operations. Please begin with laying a track piece at approximately the center, above the tree. Now select Lay Track once more and add a second piece to the end of the first. Upon closer inspection, you'll find that the second track is not connected properly to the first yet. Click on the new element again and it will automatically snap into position. Another method of extending your track can be found in this window. Please ensure that forward is selected and that reverse is not activated. Then click on Duplicate Track. Note that the middle section has changed to blue. This indicates that both ends have a connection with another track piece. The first element is still yellow because its starting point has no connection. And the last element is also yellow because its end is still unconnected. Lesson 15. Now you can add a station. Train stations are found in the Track Objects category. The icon shows a red roof next to a rail track. Please open with a double click the folder Track Objects, then with another double click the subfolder Stations and Platforms. Activate the category Stations. Search your model list for a station named Polenzella. Select this with a left click and set it down somewhere near your tracks with another click. Track objects are combinations of structures and tracks. This small station includes two short track sections. One is visible above the building. The other is hidden under the roof, but recognizable by the two vectors here and here. Zoom in close and the roof is reduced to an outline, making the second track visible. Select this bottom track, then hold down the left mouse button and move the station roughly into position. Let go of the mouse button and the track will automatically snap in place. Note that the last track section before the station has turned blue now, indicating that both its ends have a connection. Lesson 16. Time to check what the result looks like in 3D. To set up a different camera position, you can click on this icon for Setup Camera. Ensure that Auto Scroll is active. Then select the Setup Camera icon and move the mouse pointer to your desired location. The map will shift automatically when you come near the edge of the window. Set up the camera at the beginning of your track with a left click. EEP immediately switches to the 3D view. The camera sits 5 meters above ground and is pointed straight forward from west to east. Hold down the right mouse button to travel across the track and verify that all track sections are joined up seamless. Lesson 17. In this and the following lesson, I'll show you how to add a turnout to your track and connect it with a second station platform. First, identify the second track element, it's the first blue one, mark it and delete it. Now go to the track lane category and click on the button for a two-way switch point. Attach this to the first track element and click on it once more to snap it in. Note that the following track element has changed to blue once again, because both ends are properly connected. The newly introduced two-way switch point, however, is still yellow, meaning that there is one unused connection. This is because switch points have two connection points at the end marked with a dot, and only one of them is currently used. The black square also indicates that there is at least one free connection point at this end. Lesson 18. You'll need two track elements to build a connection from the switch point to station platform 2. Put down a normal track somewhere at the free location, bend it upwards a bit. Now shift it into position near the switch point. It snaps in the moment you let go of the mouse button. Your turnout is now complete. The two-way switch element turns blue, the black square disappears, and instead you now see a small green triangle showing the switch point's current setting, as well as a unique ID number. Any track element can only form a circular arc. You therefore need to find a suitable position for this end from where you can connect to the station platform using a circular arc. If you'd add your second piece here and bend it to the station's track, it will snap in and connect, but you'd end up with a kink. The vectors at the track's ends help you to find a suitable location. Bend the end of the first track to a spot where the two vectors form a symmetrical cross. Any symmetrical shape, regardless how much the two vectors overlap, indicates that a circular arc can connect both ends kink-free. Lesson 19. A matching platform extension can also be found among the trackside objects. First, navigate to the end of the station, then select trackside objects, deactivate the stations category and select station platforms instead. Search for a model named Platform Straight 2 Tracks with Lights. This is a matching platform for the pollen seller station. Set it down in a clear space first, and then grab the marked track and shift it into place. It snaps in when you let go of the mouse button. Lesson 20. You can extend multiple tracks at once in EEP, and in this lesson I'll show you how. Change back to the track editor, search for the block tool in the menu bar and select it. With the left mouse button held down, drag a frame around both tracks from the platform extension. Make sure to not include more than the tracks from the platform extension. Verify that forward is selected in the copy window and reverse is turned off. Click on the duplicate track button. Both tracks are copied in length, direction and spacing between the tracks and added to the end. We'll need these extensions a little later on for the station's exit signals. Lesson 21. Next, we'll need another switch point to bring the two tracks back together again. If you're using the basic version of EEP, add a two-way switch here and make it face the opposite way. You need the end marked with a dot to point towards the station because it has the two connection points built in. Then you build your connections to the station platforms with the methods you've learned in the previous lessons. If you're using the expert version of EEP, there's a more convenient way, which I'm going to demonstrate now. In the Assemble menu, you'll find a number of pre-built track combinations, one of which is Branch Out. Select this and a Properties window opens. Change the spacing to 6.19 meters and click OK. EEP generates a block and puts it in the middle of the visible map section. These two ends are spaced out 6.19 meters, which is the exact distance between the two platforms. Use the oval to spin the block around and grab the block elsewhere to move it. When you hold down the Shift key and move the block close to an open track end, it will automatically snap in. You can let go of the Shift key if you want to reposition the block. Hold down the Shift key once more while you move the block to make it snap in again. When you've found the desired position, first let go of the mouse button. This way you avoid slipping out of position. And then let go of the Shift key. Now click twice outside the marking frame. Once to exit the positioning mode and a second time to accept the block. Lesson 22. You can point a camera at a specific location when you set it up using the 2D editor. To do this, don't click at the desired location but hold down the left mouse button instead. Drag a line from the camera location to the target spot. EEP switches to 3D the instant you let go of the mouse button. This camera position is 4 meters above ground and tilted downwards slightly. Your target spot is at the center of your 3D window. Lesson 23. Finally, add 2 more tracks of standard length at the eastern end of the layout to complete the bottom half of the oval. You already learned that it requires 2 clicks to connect a track element, one to set it up and another to make it snap in. You can combine this into a double click. For the second piece, you can either practice this method once more or use the duplicate track button again. This function can also lay tracks outside the visible section of the map. Click on the Center Camera button to move the map to the currently selected element. Lesson 24. The last track section brought us almost to the edge of our map. Considering that all vectors at the end of track pieces have a length of 20 meters, it is easy to estimate that another 60 meters track section won't fit. In this and the next lesson, I'll demonstrate how an entire block of tracks can be saved, deleted, and reintroduced at a different location. First, zoom back so the entire track layout is visible. Now find the block tool in the menu bar. Draw a frame around everything. All tracks and all structures from the trackside objects category turn black. The tree, however, is still green, because it belongs to the landscape elements category and is therefore not selected when the tracks mode is the active one. Find the icon for Save Current Block in the menu bar. A click on the icon opens the folder for track blocks. Enter a suitable name and click on Save or hit the return key. And then hit the delete key to remove the selected items from your layout. Note that the tree which sat next to the first track piece is still in place. Please leave it there. It will serve as a reference point for the following step. Lesson 25. Prior to loading and setting up the saved block, a little preparation is required. Look for the Match Object Position Height to Surface entry in the Edit menu. Disable it. Otherwise, the stored block won't be rebuilt properly. The reason is that the tracks and the structures have different base levels. Now, click on the Open Block icon, select the previously saved block, and click Open. Immediately, the block is added to the layout in the middle of the visible map area. The white frame around the block indicates that you can edit the block's properties. A right click anywhere opens the Properties menu. Enter the value 0 in both the X and the Y position and confirm the new values by clicking OK. With 2 clicks outside the frame, you leave the edit mode and accept the block at its current location. We've never moved the tree and it's still sitting at the map's center. The train station is now a little to the left of the tree because the track field to the right of our station is a little longer, offsetting the station a little to the left from the block's center. The complete block sits bang in the middle of the map now, leaving enough space on either side to complete the oval. Lesson 26. This lesson will show you how to add a 180-degree turn at the right end. Select the last track element, copy it, and right-click it to open the Properties menu. Enter a value of 45 degrees for the angle and hit OK. Then copy this element a further 3 times. Lesson 27. If you're using the basic version of EEP, you'll need to complete the oval by adding the required tracks one by one. You've already learned everything that's needed for this step. If, however, you own the expert version, there's a neat trick to speed things up considerably. Select Close Gap from the menus. Zoom into the end of the 180-degree turn. Click on the blue chevron. Zoom back out again and into the beginning of the track at the left end. Click on that chevron here too. And immediately EEP suggests a suitable connection of both ends. Zoom out once more to see the entire block and click outside the marking frame to accept the block and add it to the layout. Lesson 28. This area in front of the station lends itself to a loading siding. Select the last track before the station. Change the mode for duplicate track to right. Ensure that the distance is set to 4.5 meters and then click Duplicate Track. This adds a new track piece parallel to the selected one. Lesson 29. The 3D editor lets you convert one track type into another. Select the editor, travel to the newly created loading track, select the track's category, click on the new track, and right-click it to open the context menu. Find Convert to Track End. EEP sets up a buffer stop at the end automatically. Now search for the first straight element after the bend. Right-click that track section to open the context menu and choose Convert to Two-Way Switch. Spin the camera around and you'll see a switch lantern at the end, indicating that this is now a two-way switch point. In the following lesson, you'll connect the newly created switch point to the loading siding. Lesson 30. The two-way switch, which you've created in the previous lesson, has one open connection. This is indicated by the yellow color and the black square. As an expert user, you can use Close Gap once more to form the connection to the loading track. With the basic version, you'll have to add 2 or 3 short track pieces and bend them into shape the same way you did when you connected platform 2. Please note that the loading track is blue in spite of the fact that only one end has a connection. The reason behind this is that the end has no connection point. This is indicated by this grey track end line. Lesson 31. The track layout for this tutorial is now complete, and it is advisable to save it at this stage. Find the Save As icon. You can decide to exclude categories from your layout, vehicles for instance. But to keep things simple at this stage, leave everything unchanged and EEP now opens the folder for layouts. It is highly advisable that you create a subfolder for your personal layouts. Now enter a name for your layout, and please refrain from using any special characters, like German umlauts for instance, because they don't have a unique character code and may later on lead to problems, like a layout not loading properly. On the other hand, it is okay and actually useful to use spaces. It is also advisable to add a number to the layout's name and change this number from time to time. That way, you'll have more than one copy of your layout, and you can always go back to an older version if you find that you're not happy with your last save. Finally, click on Save or hit the Return key. You'll see a confirmation that your layout was saved. Lesson 32. Any layout is kind of boring without trains. In this lesson and the next one, I'll show you how to set up a locomotive and 2 coaches. Go to 3D. Bring your station platform 1 into good view. Switch to the editor if necessary. Select the rolling stock category. Double-click the rolling stock folder, the railway subfolder, then standard gauge, and finally locomotives. Activate steam engines. Look for a locomotive classed as DB93 and select it. Note that the mouse pointer is now accompanied by a small loco icon, which disappears when your mouse pointer is between tracks and reappears when the tip of the arrow is on top of a track. This tells you where you can or cannot set up rolling stock. Left-click a spot on the track and a requester window opens where you can change the name of the engine if you wish. After clicking OK, the engine shows up on the track, ready to go. Lesson 33. Deselect the subcategory Small Steam, close the Locomotive subfolder, open the Wagon subfolder and activate Passenger Carriages. The coach classified as DB AB4YG from the year 56 goes well with the chosen loco. If you re-rail it close behind the loco, both are immediately coupled. This may push the loco forward a bit. The German classification AB stands for coaches which offer first and second class compartments. A little further down the list, you'll find a matching coach classified B4YG, meaning that this is second class only. Try setting it up at a slightly greater distance to the train, and you'll notice that this wagon is not coupled to the train automatically. It is also worth mentioning that you can add more copies of this model to the layout without reselecting it from the list. This is indicated by the loco icon next to your mouse pointer. But since 2 coaches are quite sufficient for our small layout, press the Escape key, please, to free the mouse pointer. Lesson 34. To pick up the last coach, you have to change from Edit mode to Drive mode. Now select the engine, it's the only motorized vehicle. Go into reverse gear, ensure that the brakes are released, and slowly increase the regulator. Set the regulator back to 0 by right-clicking the speed bar when the train is in motion. The loco's own inertia will keep it in motion for a little while longer. And when you hear the couplers connect, apply the brakes. Lesson 35. Now change into forward gear, release the brakes, and gently increase the speed to set the train in motion. This engine isn't particularly strong and the coaches are heavy, so even at maximum settings, the train's speed is unlikely to exceed 60 km per hour by much. With the train on its merry way, you have time to check that all is well at the station's entry. If the first switch point is set to branch, the train will end up on the loading siding. To operate the switch in the 3D window, hold down the Shift key and click on the lantern. Alternatively, you can operate switches in the Overview window. The first switch after the bend has the order number 0003, because it was the third switch that you constructed. A simple click on the green triangle is sufficient to operate switches in the Overview window. Lesson 36. Now's the time to add a little safety to the layout by setting up a first signal at the entrance point. Here's how you do it in 2D mode. Zoom in on the section before the station, select the Signals category, double-click on the Signals folder, and select the Main Signals category. Scroll to the bottom of the list and look for a signal named RA-PL5 HPO1 form. HPO1 is the German label for the signal state clear, and form means that this is a signal of the semaphore type. You can use the mouse wheel in the preview window to zoom out and the right mouse button to stop the rotation. Move your mouse over to the map window and find a suitable location for your signal. Signals are always attached to a track and automatically detected by approaching trains, which is why you have to click on the track to set up a signal. The PL5 in the signal's name refers to a plug-in 5 for an earlier version of EEP. This plug-in introduced multi-state signals, that is, signals which have more than two possible aspects. With this introduction, the default state of signals was changed from clear to danger. For downward compatibility reasons, older signals from the early days of EEP are still included in the model set. And that is why you find two versions of the semaphore signal. This one is identical with the one I just used, except for its default state being clear. Every signal in EEP consists of two elements, a main signal and a distance signal. The distance signal marks the spot where the train is ordered to stop, whereas the main signal determines the position where the train comes to a halt. Like switch points, signals also receive a unique number. This signal received the number 4 because both switches and signals share the same number set. The numbers 1 to 3 are already used up by the 3 switch points. Lesson 37. Two conditions must be met for a signal to stop a train automatically. First, the signal must already present danger when the train passes the distance signal. And second, the train must run in automatic mode. Currently, the manual control is on. A click on the drive button switches to the automatic controls, easily recognizable by the fact that there's only 2 rulers. With our train still running in manual mode, this here quite rightly reads automatic mode off. The upper ruler in the automatic window indicates the current speed. The lower one can be used to set a target speed. And as soon as you set a target speed, the train switches to automatic mode. The train will now autonomously respond to any signal. Lesson 38. For a more realistic behavior, switch back to the 2D editor and move the distance signal back a fair bit to extend the braking distance. Note that the main signal remains in place when you move the distance signal. In the 3D window, you can operate signals like you operate switches. Hold down the Shift key and click on either the distance signal or the main signal. However, if you operate signals using the overview window, there's a small difference to operating switches. While switches can be changed with a simple click, signals require that you hold down the Shift key to operate them. Lesson 39. A signal's main purpose is to protect the train by blocking the section this train is in, which means that a signal should change to danger when a train has entered the section that's guarded by this signal. This too can be automized. EEP provides contacts for this and other purposes. Ensure that you're in the signals mode and that contacts for signals is selected. Now mark the signal with a single click, then click on the Set Contact button and position the contact close behind the main signal. The tip of the mouse pointer determines where the contact is set. The contact icon next to the pointer is only an indicator that you are in set contact mode. Contacts for signals are colored red. The circle, more accurately the center of the circle, marks the point where the contact responds. And arrows indicate the direction in which a train must pass the contact to set it off. Lesson 40. Select the contact with a left click, it will turn orange, and then right click to bring up the Properties window. You can deactivate Direction 2 because this contact's sole purpose is to close the signal after a train that comes into the station. You can also enter a delay time of a few seconds. That gives the man in the signal tower time to do his job. The default aspect of the corresponding signal is danger. That's why danger is already pre-selected in the effect field, which is just what we need. Accept all settings with OK. And note that there's only one triangle now pointing towards the station. This is direction 1 as determined by the track underneath. In 3D, contacts are of course invisible while in drive mode. But in edit mode, you'll see them as a colored pearl with arrowheads indicating the direction. 3 seconds from now, the signal goes back to danger, thanks to the train triggering the contact. Lesson 41. EEP provides contacts for switch points too. Select the contact category for switch points, as well as double and single slip switches. Zoom in on switch point number 1, which separates the track into the two platforms. Click on the track with a two-way switch at the end. It's the one left of this triangle. And note that you're immediately in set contact mode, without clicking the Set Contact button first. Set the contact on the lower platform track. Switch contacts are recognizable by their green color. Activate the contact with a left click, then right click to open its properties, deselect Direction 2, and activate End of Train, because you'll want this contact to respond after the entire train has passed it. Choose Branch as effect and click OK. A train entering platform 1 will now, once it has completely passed the contact, set the switch point to branch to platform 2. Note that the circle is considerably smaller. This tells you that the end of a train will trigger the contact and not the front. You'll notice the difference in size when you click on the switch point track again and add a contact on the upper track. This circle is currently larger because this contact is not yet set to respond to the end of trains. Change that, deselect Direction 2, and keep the effect Main. A train going to platform 2 will now, upon passing the contact, set the switch back to point at platform 1. Lesson 42. Surely you'd like to watch the effect of your latest improvements. But what's the hold-up? Where's the train? Check your control window. In automatic mode, you'll see an ID number here if a train is held up by a signal. Navigate to that signal in the overview window to set it to clear and let the train into the station. When the train has completely passed the contact, here, the switch point is changed to branch. Lesson 43. Next step, exit signals at the other end of the station. Navigate there and choose HP01 form OVSIG. The strange acronym at the end means that this signal has no visible distance signal. Set up one of these signals on the lower track extension after the platform and a second one on the upper track. Technically, these signals do have a distance signal. All signals do. They mark the spot where a train is ordered to slow down. But there's no visible distance signal in 3D. Select the distance signals and shift them back to the beginning of the platform extension, because you need to make room for offsetting these holding positions, marked by a thin black line. Now, select signal number 5, open the properties, and enter a braking distance of 30 meters. This offsets the holding line by 30 meters. Do the same with signal 6. Now you can reposition each main signal until the holding point is at the end of the platform. Note that distance signals move together with their respective main signals. Trains will now stop here at the end of the platform. Switch to the 3D editor, signal mode, select the signal, and you'll see a red marker at the stopping point. The actual signal is now at a distance where a train conductor has it in plain sight. Lesson 44. Finally, reposition the map so that you can move the distance signal markers to the station's entrance. That will slow down trains immediately when they enter the station area. But don't cross the switch point. A switch point is never allowed between the distant and the main signal. It is also important to remember that the signal icons are drawn at the right of their respective tracks. This signal is attached to this upper track, while this signal is attached to this lower track, and there's no signal on this loading track. Lesson 45. In this lesson, you'll add contacts which set the exit signals back to danger after a train has left the station. Switch the contact mode back to Signals. Activate signal 5, click on Set Contact, and set the contact close behind the signal. Open the Properties menu, deselect Direction 2, enter a delay time of 3 seconds, and keep the effect Danger. Remember that this bend here may be facing the opposite way, depending on how you built this section. The beginning of this element is here, and the end there. This matters when you decide which directions you'll deactivate in the contact's properties. Pick signal number 6, click on Set Contact, put the contact on this bend section, select it, and open the properties. Deselect Direction 2, enter a delay time of 3 seconds, keep it at Danger, and click OK. See how the active Direction 1 is facing the wrong way in this instance? Open the properties once again. Activate Direction 2 and deactivate Direction 1. Now the contact is triggered by leaving trains. This track element is facing the normal way. EEP takes that difference into account when you move the contact, and there's no need to change its properties afterwards. Lesson 46. This may be a good moment to save the layout once more. If you want to replace your previous file, you can click on the Save icon. If you prefer to keep both versions, select the Save As icon. Declare that you want to save all categories, and here is where the space and the edit number in your file name come in handy. Because in Windows tradition, a double click selects an entire word, and with a space separating the number from the name, you can double click at the end of the file name to select only the number. Enter a new number and click on Save. It's worth noting that every EEP layout actually consists of 10 different files. From within EEP, you only ever see the main layout file. But if you inspect your layout folder with the Windows Explorer, you'll see all 10 of them. Make sure that you keep all 10 files together in one location if, for instance, you move them to a different folder. Lesson 47. Station entrance and exit are now secured, and we should be able to safely operate a second train. Point your camera at the station, readjust it if necessary to bring the entire station into view, switch to the editor, and select Rolling Stock. Deactivate the passenger carriages and activate Freight Car. Look for a DB ES045 and re-rail it near the beginning of the station. A little further down the list you'll find a GBS 254, which you re-rail in front of the first wagon. And finally, there's this cooling wagon, notable by its white icon. Please always click on the name to select the model, not on the icon. Lesson 48. Turn off the freight category and activate diesel in the locomotives folder. Find the class DB360 shunting engine. You already know how to drive an engine, so here's another neat trick you may like. When in drive mode, hold down the control key and the mouse pointer changes into a hand when you're over an engine or a wagon. Grab the loco by holding down the left mouse button and give it a little shove. Hold down the control key again to grab and stop the train. Lesson 49. Don't set the freight train in motion just yet. First, you'll want to allow the passenger train in. Selecting any vehicle with a simple click will bring up the manual controls. You can hold down the Shift key to go straight to the automatic controls. Increase the target speed to set the freight train in motion. You'll notice that the danger signal is being ignored. Reason being that this train never passed the invisible distance signal, which is the element that actually influences any train. Upon its return, the freight train will enter platform 2, because the incoming passenger train changed switch point number 1, pass the distance signal and stop at the station. Lesson 50. When the freight train has arrived, you can set the passenger train in motion. And while that train is running, we can begin to automize that the two trains take alternating turns. Please go back to the plan window. In signal mode and with the contact category set to signal, select signal number 6, that's the upper one. Click on Set Contact and put a contact on the lower track just before the stopping point, near the end of the platform. Select the contact, open the Properties window, deselect Direction 2, and change the effect to Clear. Go to 3D, open the entry signal to allow the returning passenger train in, and watch how it releases the freight train when it has arrived. Lesson 51. When the freight train has left, you can go back to 2D and complete the cycle. Select signal number 5 this time, and put a contact for it on the track at platform 2. Apply the same properties, Direction 2 off, effect Clear for signal number 5. OK. From now on, any train that enters at platform 2 clears the exit for a train at platform 1. Don't forget to set signal 4 to clear to allow the train in. Lesson 52. The switch point number 2 after the station is currently force switched by any train. Obviously, it would look a lot nicer if it was set in time before a train leaves the station. Back to 2D, select the contact mode for switch points. Select the track which contains the switch point number 2 here. This is a very short piece of track if you used a ready-made combination. You'll want to aim for the spot just after this indicator. The icon next to your mouse pointer tells you that you found the right spot. Set this contact on track 1 and near the center of the platform extension. Open the properties, Direction 2 is not needed, and the desired effect is branch, because a train entering the lower track will release a train on the upper track. Click on the switch point track once more for another contact. This one goes on the upper track and must have the effect main, so that a train arriving at platform 2 sets the path for the train leaving from platform 1. Lesson 53. Do you tire of setting the entrance signal to clear every time another train approaches the station? I would. There's 2 ways to automate this. With a basic version of EEP, you would select signal 4 and set a contact for it here that switches the signal to clear when the end of the train has passed it. The expert version of EEP lets you link signals, and that's what I will demonstrate now. Select signal number 5. Open the properties and set up a logical connection to signal number 4. You may omit the leading zeros. Now you define that every time when this signal changes to danger, signal 4 turns to clear. When signal 5 changes to clear, signal 4 will not change. Click OK and repeat this for signal 6. Bring up the properties, link to signal 4 again. When this signal, number 6, changes to danger, signal 4 changes to clear. OK. Switch to 3D to check the effect. Every time when a train leaves the station and sets the signal back to danger, the entry signal now goes to clear. Links are only one way. When the entry signal is set back to danger by the incoming train, the exit signals stay unaffected. The arriving passenger train changes the exit signal for the freight train to clear. This has no effect on the entry signal. But when the leaving freight train changes signal 6 back to danger, the linked signal 4 turns to clear. Now you have a layout which will run continuously while you lean back and enjoy your work. Lesson 54. Next, I'll show you how to set up houses and other structures using the 3D editor. Spin your layout and bring the loading track into view. Go to Edit mode and select the Structures category. Right-click inside the Categories window to bring up Find Model and enter Shed. At the bottom of the list you'll find the Uhlstedt shed, which goes well with our pollen cellar station. Left-click the spot where you want the shed. Note the black frame next to your mouse pointer. It tells you that you could add more copies of the same item. Press Escape to free your mouse. Now click on the shed to bring up the gizmo. It consists of 3 arrows for positioning, 3 rings for rotating a model, and 3 pearls for resizing it. Deselect the model by hitting Escape again. Lesson 55. To find a suitable platform for the loading bay, right-click here to bring up Find Models and enter Alexis. The platform for Alexis butt is suitable for our purpose. Press Escape to free the mouse, then left-click the platform to bring up the gizmo. The gizmo's handles are available regardless of their visibility. The mouse icon changes into a hand when you hover over a gizmo's arrow. Shift the platform to the desired position. Then select the shed again, reposition it as well, and lower it a bit to bring the threshold of the door in line with the platform. When you change your model's position and height, please make sure that Match Object Position Height to Surface is turned off. Because if this option is active, any model will snap back to the default height as soon as you move it. Lesson 56. Some models have moving parts. Here's a fine example. Change back to the rolling stock category, deselect the diesel engines, select the freight wagons, look for the freight car GBRS253 and put it on the loading track. Switch to drive mode. Make sure the wagon is selected and you'll find a list of all moving parts down here. Tür 1 is the door on the near side in this case. Move the slider to the right and watch the door slide open. Now hold down the Control key to pull the wagon to the loading platform. Lesson 57. Next, we'll add a road to the train station. Laying streets is no different from laying rail tracks. Back in 2D, find the station, switch to the roads mode, open the street styles list, scroll up a bit and look for the City Street 2 with pavement on both sides. Click on Lay Road and put the first section in front of the train station. The plan is to build a level crossing over here. The default height of the road is too low for that. Open the properties and change the absolute height to 0.2 meters. To accurately position the road, switch to 3D. Find a suitable camera position. Go into Edit mode. Select the Tracks category. And click on the road to bring up the gizmo. Tracks have two types of gizmos. One at the beginning of the track, which works just like the gizmo for structures, and a different one without rings at the end. Use the one at the beginning to position and rotate your track. The gizmo at the end lets you stretch and bend the road. Lesson 58. You can lay tracks in 3D too. Adjust your camera so that you can see the end of the road element well. Right-click the road to bring up the context menu and choose Add Track at Endpoint. Use the green arrow to turn the road away from the rails. Add another element. Bend it back the opposite way and shorten it a little if necessary. The next section is for the turn towards the rails. The next extension can be straightened and pulled across the rails to form your level crossing. Then finally two more pieces. One which you'll please bend back, and the last one that runs straight and parallel to the station. Leave plenty of room between this road and the upper half of the railway oval, because you're going to need that space later on to try out some landscaping. Lesson 59. Level crossing barriers belong to the signals category. And signals too can be set up in the 3D editor as well as in the 2D plan window. Open the signals folder and select the level crossing category. Look for the level crossing epoch 3 to 4, which is a perfect match for our station. When you set up signals in 3D, the side of the track where you click with the mouse determines the direction in which the signal operates. In front of the level crossing, click on the near side of the road to set up a barrier. After the level crossing, click on the far side. Free the mouse by pressing Escape. Signals too can be positioned with a gizmo. Click on the barrier to select it. This gizmo only consists of two arrows because you can only slide signals along a track. The red arrow always points in the direction in which the signal is effective. Lesson 60. In the lesson after this, you'll learn how to operate the barriers using contacts. If you're using the expert version of EEP, you can set up a logical link between both barriers. That way, you'll only ever have to operate one of them and the other will follow. In this lesson, I'll demonstrate how to do that. You can see here in the overview window that one barrier has the ID number 7, the other one has number 8. Select barrier number 7 with a right click and open the Properties window. Link this signal number 7 to signal number 8. When this barrier opens, the linked barrier number 8 shall open too. And when this one closes, the other shall also close. Confirm the settings. You may want to link barrier 8 to barrier 7 too. Pair open with open and close with close. Back to drive mode. Now hold down the Shift key like you always do when you operate a signal in 3D, and no matter which barrier you click, the other one follows. Lesson 61. Level crossing barriers can of course also be operated via contacts, just like any other signal. In this lesson, I'll demonstrate how to open the barriers after a train has passed the level crossing. Since you're already familiar with setting up contacts in 2D, I'll use the 3D editor this time to implement the contacts for the barriers. Change to the editor. Ensure that you're in the signal category. Right-click the barrier and select Signal Contact. Put that contact on a rail track. The barrier is of course a road signal, but you can nevertheless control it with contacts on the railways, meaning that the trains can control the road traffic. Right-click the contact and bring up its properties. Deselect direction 1 if you use the pre-built turnout in the expert version. Activate train end to ensure that the entire train has vacated the level crossing before you open it. The effect is open. Hit OK. Check the gizmo of a contact if you're uncertain which direction is which. The red arrow always points in direction 1. The yellow arrow points in direction 2. If you have the basic version of EEP, you'll want to set up another contact here for the second barrier. When you're using the expert version, a contact for one barrier is sufficient because you established a link between the two. But you will want an identical contact on the upper track so that trains leaving from platform 2 can also open the barrier. That's easy. Right-click the contact, choose Copy Contact, and click on the upper track, and you're done. Except that maybe you'll want to use the gizmo to reposition the contact. Go back into drive mode to watch the effect. Lesson 62. Next, you'll want contacts for closing the barriers. The basic procedure is the same. Switch back to Edit mode, right-click a barrier, select Signal Contact, and put this contact somewhere near the green one, which sets the switch point to. The distance to the contact that sets the exit signal to clear should be sufficient for the barriers to fully close before the next train is released. Select the contact. Note that the red arrow, which indicates direction 1, points forward. Open the contact's properties, deselect direction 2, and set the effect to close. Finally, copy this contact and set up the copy on the parallel track. Lesson 63. Go back to drive mode and see what happens. Beautiful and quite realistic how the level crossing now responds to the railway traffic. This concludes our railway operation, and it's time to do a little landscaping. But before you begin with it, please save the current state of your layout. Landscaping is a creative task, and you may want to start over again a few times to try out different ideas. So it's always good to have a plain version of your layout at the ready. Lesson 64. Landscaping, like most tasks, can be done in 2D as well as 3D, and both methods have their merits. The plan window is particularly useful for the first draft, whereas fine-tuning is better done in 3D. In this lesson, we'll begin with a single mountain stretch that covers the rear half of the oval. Select Surface Design. The landscape relief, which you've turned off in one of the earlier lessons, is required for landscaping and therefore turned back on automatically when you change into the landscape mode. Zoom out to a position where you can see most of the oval. Select this button to create a mountain. Enter a height of 25 meters. Enter a value of 10 for smoothing. Now draw two enclosed shapes. The first is the circumference of the mountain's plateau. The second shape must fully encompass the first. It is the circumference of the mountain's base. All mountain sides slope from the inner to the outer shape. And this is what the result looks like in 3D. Press the Page Up key to lift the camera up, and then the down arrow to tilt the camera down. You may also want to zoom back a bit. Lesson 65. Next, draw two small mountains where you want your tunnel portals to sit later on. Select Create Mountain again. Change the height to 15 meters and increase the smoothing to 40. Draw a small circle over the spot where the track enters the mountain, and for the base, make the second circle big enough to include half of the large mountain. See how the high smoothing value affects everything included in the outer circle and not just the new smaller mountain. Now the same at the other end. A small circle here where the track meets the mountain, and a large one including the remaining half of the big mountain. And this is the result in 3D. The plateau from the long mountain is gone and replaced by a soft hill. Lesson 66. You may want to use the 3D editor again to set up the tunnel portals. You'll find them in the Structures category by entering the search string Tunnel. Select Tunnel 1 and put it somewhere here near the mountain slope. Press Escape to free the mouse and select the portal with a left click to bring up the gizmo. Now center the portal over the track and then push it back into the mountain. Press Escape to free the mouse and move the camera to the opposite end of the mountain. Turn it around and repeat the process. Choose Tunnel 2, set it on a flat area of the surface, free the mouse, select the tunnel and move it over the track and into the mountain. Don't worry if some of the mountain is sticking out of the tunnel entrance. The next lesson will tell you how to fix that. Lesson 67. In this lesson, I'll demonstrate how to fine-tune the landscape. You find the landscaping tools here, The icon shows a bulldozer and a mountain. This mode offers a large selection of landscaping tools. The first button is for creating rounded hills. Move your mouse to a spot where you want to build a hill, and hold down the left mouse button to lift the surface. The intensity slider defines how fast the surface rises while you hold down the mouse button. With a value of 10, the change is hardly noticeable. Hold down the Control key to lower the surface. The grid color changes from white to green. The second tool in this row produces peaking hills. The third is for forming a plateau. And the fourth button is the erosion tool. It smoothens the landscape in normal mode and roughens it up when you hold down the Control key. This last button shows a stamp over a mountain. With this you can pick up a height at one spot and transfer it to another. I'll demonstrate it by clearing the track which I've just obscured. Set the brush size to 4. The intensity doesn't apply for this tool. Find a spot where the track is clear. Hold down the Control key to sample the surface height. A single green square indicates the spot where you pick up the surface height. Left-click here, let go of the Control key, and stamp this height under the track to clear the path. Note that the 4 squares at the center are set to the sampled height, while the surrounding squares form a transition to the neighboring heights. When you're done here, move to the other end of the mountain and see if the tunnel portal here also needs to be cleared. Hold down the Control key to sample the height at one spot and transfer it to another. Lesson 68. This button in row 2 shows a brush over a mountain. It's your texturing tool. Try Alpine Meadows 6. Find a suitable spot and hold down the left mouse button to apply the texture. When this is the first time you use this texture on your layout, you won't immediately see it. Let go of the mouse button and allow for the texture to be loaded into the memory. From now on, you can paint this texture onto the surface and immediately see the effect. The shading which you see here is affected by the intensity slider. Reduce the intensity for less shading. Increase the intensity for stronger shading. The shading pattern is applied randomly. Used carefully, the shading can add a more varied and natural appearance to your textures. Lesson 69. In addition to the huge selection of surface textures, there's also a number of ready-made combinations. They are called motifs. Try the hills motif on your mountain. It's a combination of 4 matching textures, and next to the textures you see angle values which tell you at what steepness which texture is applied. You may want to increase the brush size when you apply the motif. The 4 textures from this motif are new on this layout, and you won't see them until you let go of the mouse button and allow for EEP to load them into the memory. Now that the textures are loaded, you can paint them onto the surface just like normal paint. Note that the angle values are not strict and you'll get a realistic random mix of the 4 textures. It is important to remember that any chosen motif takes precedence over a selected single texture. You must choose no motif from the top of this list if you want to apply a specific texture again. Lesson 70. It always surprises me what difference a few trees make when I'm landscaping. Trees can be found in the normal editor under the Landscape Elements category. Open the Landscape folder and Flora, where you select Conifers. Conifer number 10 is a good choice for this layout. Note that any model you add is always positioned at surface height. To freely move an element, right-click it and select Move Object. Note that when you move the object, it does not follow the surface shape. Because in an earlier lesson, you turned off the Match Object Position Height to Surface option. Turn that option back on, and the tree follows the shape of the mountain while you move it. Lesson 71. You don't have to build forests one tree at a time in EEP, because there's a handy tool for this too. Go back to 2D editing, select the Landscape Elements mode, open Landscape Elements, Flora, and select the Conifers category. If you're still seeing the list of birches in the model selection, your search string from the second lesson is still applied. Scroll down the list of categories and deactivate Search Models. Now, with the filter turned off, you see the list of conifer trees as you would expect. Open the Assemble menu and look for the Scatter tool. Using this tool, draw a frame around the area which you want to populate with a particular tree. Right-click inside the frame to open the Properties menu. Enter the minimum distance that the models are to maintain between one another, as well as any existing object or track. 10 meters is a good start. Select the scale factor to vary between 0.7 and 1.3 and allow any values between 0 and 360 degrees for the rotation. Confirm the settings. Now select Conifer 11 from the model list and click once anywhere inside the frame. The entire area is now populated with trees of varying size and rotation, all spaced out at least 10 meters from each other, as well as other obstacles like the track. For a mixed forest, turn off the Conifers category and select the deciduous trees. Right-click inside the frame to bring up the properties and reduce the minimum distance to 4 meters. Pick the older tree 14 meters and click anywhere inside the frame. Note that the icons for deciduous trees are of a brighter green color. Check your work in 3D. And you may of course reposition any of the trees at will. Lesson 72. Next, you may want to add a small town to your scenery. Select the Structures category and use the search string Rübe, R-U-E-B-E. This will list all buildings from the Rübeland series. There's a house named Doreen, Etienne, Eveline, Jacqueline, Kathleen, Laureen, Micheline, Mirko, and a small pub named Tanne. Make sure to hit the Escape key to free the mouse pointer after you've set up the last building. Now you can activate each house with a left click and use the gizmo to position it. All the entrances face south, so you may want to spin around every building that's facing the station. And if you leave some space between the pub and the road, you'll have room for tables and chairs outside. Lesson 73. To extend the road, switch back to tracks. Right-click the road to bring up the context menu and select Add Track at Starting Point. At Starting Point because the end of this element is over here and already connected. Now stretch and bend the new element to go around the block. Add more road pieces as needed. If an extension ends up under the houses and you find it difficult to grab the gizmo, open the road's properties and enter an angle value of 0. Left-click the element again to continue forming your road. And you can always switch back to the Structures category if you'd like to reposition any of the houses. Keep this end open because in lessons 76 to 82 I'll demonstrate how to build a T-junction and implement it here. Lesson 74. Before we go into advanced road construction, let me show you how to add a little beautification to your town. First, switch to Landscaping, select the Texture brush and look for the Paving Slabs number 1. Set the brush size to 6 and the intensity down to 10. Keep the scaling factor at 100%. Now bring the front of the pub into view and apply the texture here. A single click should be sufficient. The soil number 4 may be suitable for this corner. Remember, a new texture isn't immediately visible. Begin with a single click and then paint the texture over a large area by holding down the mouse button. Try the same over here with some foliage. You can find fences too in the Structures category. Try Jäger as a search string to find what's called a Jägerzaun in German. Add 2 fence sections to your layout. Hit the Escape key and spin and shift them both into position. Go to the Landscape category to find a suitable bush for this corner. And maybe a poplar tree over here. This shall suffice to give you an idea, and we'll move on to the next topic. Lesson 75. When you've found an interesting camera position which you'd like to keep, select this icon to save your camera. Give it a name. Make it a static camera. Click on New to add it to the list and click OK. From now on, you can always return to this camera position by simply selecting it from the list. A stationary camera will be pointed at a fixed location, whereas a dynamic camera will follow the selected train. And that's barely scratching the surface of what EEP's cameras are capable of. Keep an eye out for future tutorials regarding this specific topic. Lesson 76. In the following 3 lessons, I'll demonstrate how to construct a T-junction. I'd recommend that you save your layout before you proceed. It's best to first assemble the T-junction in 2D mode and at a remote location. Select the Roads mode. Building the T-junction requires a bit more precision, and EEP offers a grid to help you with this. The default spacing of the grid is 1 meter, and you'll only see it when you zoom in. Open the Extras menu, select Grid Settings, and change the spacing to 10 meters in X and Y. Crossroads are built from switch points. Select the street style City Street 2 pavement both. Click on Two-Way Switch and set it on the map. With the grid turned on, it snaps to the nearest node. Shorten it to 20 meters. The end also snaps to the grid. Finally, copy this element forward twice. Lesson 77. Reverse the direction of the last piece by holding down the Shift key and double-clicking the oval. This element must go up here. And a quick method to get it there is to first double-click the oval to bring it into a vertical position, and then double-clicking the dot twice to turn it on its head. As a result, you should end up with 3 two-way switches opposing each other. The 3 vectors should form a symmetrical cross, and the distance from each switch to the center is now an equal 10 meters. Lesson 78. For the connecting elements, you need the matching City Street 2 with a pavement only on the right side. Click on the button for Normal Road and connect this element to the left switch point. Then grab the end and drag it back to connect with the right switch point. The darker color of the middle section confirms that both ends are now connected. Next, copy this middle element forward, bend it into a 90-degree turn, and when you let go of the mouse, this turn will flip around and connect with the switch point at the top. The connection to the switch on the right makes it flip. The connection at the top results from the turn having the appropriate radius. Copy this turn forward. Grab and pull it a bit as if you were trying to reposition it. Let go of the mouse button and this piece too snaps into place. That's it, your T-junction is complete. Go and check your result in 3D. Lesson 79. The small blue triangles are the road's equivalent of switch point lanterns. They are only required if you're planning to operate these switches manually and in the 3D window. Open the properties of each switch point section and select Hidden to make the 3D lanterns invisible. You can still operate each switch from the overview window. Lesson 80. Now's the time to save this junction as a block. Make sure you can see the entire junction select the Mark Block tool, draw a frame around everything, click on the Save Block As icon. This opens the dedicated folder for street blocks. Enter a suitable name and click on Save. Finally, delete the block you've just built and saved. It is no longer required at this location. Lesson 81. Navigate to where you actually want that T-junction. Turn off the grid because you'll want to be able to freely position your T-junction. Remove road elements to make room for the junction. Ensure that Match Object Position Height to Surface is turned off. Now open the folder containing the street blocks and load the block you've just created. It will show up at the center of the visible map section. The white frame indicates that the block can be rotated and positioned. Right-click to bring up the properties. You need to change the height to 0.2 meters to match it with the surrounding roads. Click once outside the frame and once again to accept the block at its current position. I deliberately left some space between this and the remaining roads. That way we can bend the open ends into shape in the following lesson for a smooth connection. Lesson 82. We can now bend the free ends into position. The T-junction won't break as long as you take care to only move the beginning of each road element marked with a triangle. Don't attempt to directly connect them to the neighboring roads. You would end up with a kink in the road. Instead, try to bring two ends into a position where the vectors form a symmetrical cross. If you want to move the level crossing, you'll need to move the two barriers out of the way first. Tracks cannot be moved when they carry a signal, a contact, or a vehicle. Switch to signal mode and push the barriers way back into the bend here. With a basic version of EEP, you'll have to select the road style City Street 2, Pavement Both, connect the section to one end, and then bend it to connect with the other. If you're using the expert version, you can use the close gap function to do it for you. The keyboard shortcut for close gap is Ctrl-G. The road style is taken from the element that you pick first when you close a gap. Go to 3D, press page up to lift the camera, and then the down arrow to point it down. Remember to bring the barriers back to the level crossing. Lesson 83. Before we do a bit more landscaping for the remainder of this tutorial, allow me to add another T-junction at a different location. Remove these road sections, load the block, position it. Remember to change the height to 0.2 meters, rotate it, click twice outside the frame, bend it, and close the gaps. Easy. This is a good opportunity to introduce various view settings. To turn off the control window and the overview window, press F8. F7 brings them back on. And with F4 you change into full screen mode, where nothing spoils the view of your layout. Lesson 84. In these final lessons I'll demonstrate how to insert a small bridge traversing a little creek. I'll begin with the bridge. A suitable position is over here, just before the 180-degree turn. Switch to 3D editing. Select the tracks category. Shift the last track section before the turn out of the way. Don't delete it because you'll need it later on. Select the tracked objects rail category. Open the bridges section and select the bridge category. Look for the sheet metal bridge. You may want to enter the search string sheet to find it quicker. Put the bridge somewhere in the gap. Press Escape to free the mouse, and then select the bridge to bring up the gizmo. Shift it into position. Note the chain link icon telling you that a piece will snap in here and form a connection. Go back to Tracks mode and right-click the track which you've moved out of the way. Select Move Object. Move the track into a position where you see the chain link between the bridge and the track. Let go of the mouse button and the track will snap in. Finally, bring the end back to connect with the long turn. Press Escape to deselect the track. Lesson 85. Next, you'll want to lower the ground under the bridge to create a bed for the creek. Change to Landscape Modeling. Find the Plateau Forming mode. Set the brush size to 6 and the intensity to 30. Zoom in on the bridge. Center your grid over the bridge. Hold down the Control key, the grid changes to green, and now hold down the left mouse button to lower the surface until you've cleared the bridge. Lesson 86. To begin building the creek itself, it's best to go back to 2D editing. Scroll the map to where the bridge is. Note the blue tint on the square under the bridge. It tells you that this part is below zero ground level. Select Auxiliary Tracks, which is labeled with water waves because the majority of the tracks in this category is various waterways. Look for the blue creek at the top of the list. The double P version has less transparency and more prominent ripples. Click on the Lay Track button and put the starting point of this track right under the bridge into the ditch. That will give this track the appropriate height. Double-click the triangle to point the track north. Go back to 3D to fine-tune the creek's position under the bridge. Select the Normal Editor and the Tracks category. Click on the creek to bring up the gizmo. Bring your camera into a suitable position and shift the creek right under the bridge. Hit Escape to free the mouse. Lesson 87. Go back to 2D mode to continue building the creek. You'll be constructing it underground, and that is much easier in 2D. Turn the first track to the left, duplicate it forward, and carry on extending it for a bit. Just like you would do with rail tracks and roads. Add an element at the end under the bridge by clicking on Lay Track and double-clicking here. Pan that as well and duplicate it once more. You'll want the water to flow in one direction along the entire creek, which means that you'll have to reverse the last two pieces you've just added. Hold down the Shift key and double-click the oval. This will disconnect both sections. The brighter blue shade is an indication for that. Select the section before the bridge, then click it again and it will snap in at both ends. The first and the last element of the creek will keep their bright blue color because both have one unused connection. Lesson 88. As I stated before, the creek is currently underground for the most part. But you don't have to create the riverbed bit by bit. EEP can do this for you in one swift action. Select the block tool and draw a frame around the entire creek. Note that only the creek is marked, because nothing else on your layout falls into the auxiliary tracks category, which is currently active. Not the bridge, nor the railways, streets or signals. Now you can click this button to match the surface elevation to the marked track. You can even define an offset value for this by entering a value in the alignment field to the left of this button. An alternative way is to right-click inside the selected block, which brings up the properties, and click on the checkbox for Match Surface to Track Level. The effect is the same. And here's the result in 3D. Lesson 89. This bank looks too steep for the creek. Switch back to the landscape editor, choose the erosion tool, increase the brush size. The intensity at 30 should work well. Put the grid over the creek and hold down the left mouse button. The center of the canal will come up a bit when you do this, but the banks will become more shallow. When you're satisfied, go back to 2D mode, block select the creek, and match the surface once more to clear the river. The shallow banks were outside the range of the Match Surface tool and remain unaffected. You can also touch up some areas using a smaller brush. And you may want to reposition some trees. Remember to turn Match Object Position Height to Surface back on, so that any tree you move follows the surface shape. Lesson 90. And this concludes our tutorial. In spite of the 90 lessons it consists of, we've barely scratched the surface of what EEP can do. There's a link in the Help menu which takes you to our dedicated EEP forum. It has a special section for English-speaking users, and experienced users as well as our staff are always happy to help you or offer some more inspiration. Video tutorials dedicated to specific topics will also follow and give you a more in-depth explanation of, for instance, how signals work, what preset routes do, and how to create really smart layouts with the help of Lua scripts. Thank you very much for your attention, and keep in mind that EEP is not so much a game, but a creative tool which lets you design and operate beautiful railway layouts. Start small, take your time, and allow your layout to grow bit by bit. You'll be amazed what you can achieve.